again, to rebuild Tennessee athletics and our football program to where we all want to see it and where we know it can be, because we've been there before, and we know how impactful it'll be for our university and for our state when we get back to that place. So with that, be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Danny. We'll jump into questions. We'll take questions one at a time. If you do have follow-ups, we'll just raise your hand again, so that way we can kind of work our way through as many folks as possible. But we'll start with Brent Hubbs.
Yeah, Danny, I'm just curious from the master plan standpoint, how do you prioritize? When I looked at the master plan that you guys released, there's so many different facilities involved there. How do you prioritize sort of what the pecking order for funding, allotment, and in kind of the pecking order for what gets worked on first?
Sure. It's a good question, Brent. It's probably one of the things that keeps me awake at night the most, because there's so much to do and there's so much opportunity. But you're right, we have to prioritize. We can't do it all at once. So we'll be, I don't know that there's an exact formula for how we prioritize. Obviously, donor interest is a big factor. All those projects we're going to have to fund from the athletics department, from donations or other revenue sources. Some of the projects we've already unveiled as part of the announcement in Neyland Stadium, those are both profitable revenue generating projects. So those are always great when we can enhance our fan experience in one of our venues in a way that generates revenue. But obviously not all of our facilities do, most don't, as we think about things that impact student athlete experience, recruiting, and even some things that impact the fan experience as we get into some of the outdated areas in Neyland. That those projects are going to be expensive and they're not going to generate revenue on their own. So we got to find ways to work through that. I guess the last thought I'd have, trying to answer your question, to a certain extent, we also probably need to consider, the bang for the buck, the impact on a sport program, on our athletic department. If there are some things that are maybe more manageable from a scale and efficiency for construction standpoint to get through, I could see us maybe prioritizing that over something that maybe is more complicated, might take longer, might cost more. But the overarching, probably the dominant factor will be donor interest.
Go next to Wes Rucker.
Yeah, Danny, I'm wondering how, you talked about priorities and trying to figure out what goes when. Where is Tony Vitello's contract situation and perhaps some enhancements for Lindsey Nelson Stadium? Where does that rank into the scale there? Because it's pretty clear that he's going to be a hot commodity after this season.
Yeah, no question. Really excited about the success of our baseball program, what Tony's doing here. We're having an unbelievable season, and I know everybody's excited about this upcoming weekend. We started conversations, I did, with Tony several months ago, and he knows that we value what he's done here, and we want to build, as we do in every sport, we want to build a nationally elite baseball program. I think what we're doing this season exceeds where we've been as a program historically. We all know that. As much as I wish every single person that wanted to get into the stadium next weekend could get in, I think it's a very positive sign that we have that much interest in our program and folks that want to support the team. We know that the stadium needs to get, we need to be bigger. How big? I don't know. I think we need to explore that. Obviously, we have been exploring it, but we need to continue to do that. And we need some different and better fan amenities. We need more premium experiences and things like that in Lindsey Nelson Stadium. So those conversations have been happening for several months, and since I got here this spring, and will continue to happen as we move forward.
Trey Wallace, and then Patrick Brown.
Hey, Danny, I wanted to piggyback off that just a little bit when it comes to contract negotiations and whatnot with Tony Vitello, but also the facility standpoint. Have you guys seen an uptick in donors related to just wanting to get things done with Lindsey Nelson Stadium? And how have you handled that approach when trying to prioritize when it comes to facilities? If, okay, we can go ahead and get this done with Lindsey Nelson if we have the money now. Is that something that you're willing to do?
Yeah, no question. As I mentioned, donor interest is a huge factor. And I say that, a lot of our donors are interested in what we're interested in. And baseball is, of all of our sports, probably has the biggest discrepancy of the level we're competing at and the level that we're resourced, particularly from a facility standpoint. So yeah, we need to look at that. We are looking at that. I've had great conversations with a lot of our leadership donors, folks that have contributed to other projects in other sports. One thing every donor deserves to know, and the questions I'm getting that I completely understand, is what are we doing? And we don't know yet from a facility standpoint. That takes months to work through. We'll have to get architects involved. We've done that on the master plan side, and that's really more of a 30,000 foot view. Specifically, what can we accomplish in the short and long term that we think checks the boxes we need to check, from a player development recruiting standpoint at Lindsey Nelson Stadium, and then from a fan experience standpoint. And we're, again, engaged in those conversations and excited about where they're going. After the season, we'll certainly have even more time this summer to come up with a more finite plan for the future of that venue.
Hey, Danny, I know you mentioned sort of the Neyland Stadium enhancements and the announcement today that says that $70 million of what's already been committed is sort of earmarked for that. What's maybe the timeline on when some renovations might be done? What might some of those look like, and kind of what's your overall view of that plan since you inherited it when you came in?
Yeah, so the two projects we know we're moving forward with, and both of these projects were at least a different version. Were kind of already talked about prior to my arrival, and I was able to plug into those conversations and try to make good use of the work that was already done. We tweaked some things that I think really respond to what we've been getting from a fan survey standpoint at Tennessee for the last several years, but also are in line with what we're seeing at new modern facilities across the country, both new construction and renovations across the SEC and college football and the NFL. So the two projects talked about will both be open for the 2022 season. That's the Lower West Club that I think will be just an awesome added amenity for folks, a premium experience for those that want to be right in the action behind our team bench close to the field, but then also have a little more space in their seat and some premium amenities from a food and beverage and restroom standpoint with the lounge underneath those seats. And then the north end zone, we're accomplishing two things with that project. The video board, I know has been talked about around here for years and been much needed for all of our patrons sitting on the south side of the stadium. They don't have a video board experience, and now we'll be able to provide that in a prominent way, but also creating what I envision to be kind of like a sports bar, a fun, high energy, standing room only kind of place with some party decks underneath that video board that we see across the country in modern venues. That we think, again, another premium experience, certainly a different price point, a lower price point, probably aimed at a younger demographic. Not to say that people of all ages can't go join the party and hang out in a sports bar type environment there in the north end zone.
So David Ubben, then back to Brent Hubbs.
Yeah, Danny, this fall, what do you envision as sort of the biggest difference for the fan experience in your first fall, kind of affecting that this year?
We got a lot of smart people working on that right now. As I said, since I arrived, we need to modernize everything that we do, and fan experience is a big part of that. The facility stuff takes a little bit longer, but there are some things that we'll be introducing this upcoming year to try to bring some energy and excitement into the Neyland experience. We'll be announcing those as we get closer to the stadium, as we get closer to the season. But there's a lot of great work being done to try to make some improvements right away for this upcoming year. Obviously, with our team just getting here this spring and kind of a new focus with our athletic administration on what I just mentioned, kind of a modernization of what that looks like. there's not a lot of time between this spring and that opener Labor Day weekend, but we'll have some fun surprises for our fans and things that we'll be talking about later in the summer.
Danny, back to baseball. There have been some renderings out there for some potential expansion through the last few years. Is that something you've looked at? Is that a possibility, or do you want to kind of scrap that and start anew? And then as a second part of that, are you committed to playing baseball on campus in the area where Lindsey Nelson Stadium is, as opposed to the downtown ballpark that's been proposed?
I'm committed to whatever our baseball coach tells me gives us the best opportunity to continue to recruit and develop players at a really high level. We talk about wanting a better facility and improving things. And I'm a competitor. I want to do that in every sport we have. But we are the number 3 seed in the NCAA tournament right now. So that committee puts us as the number 3 team in the country. It's pretty good. I'm going to listen to the person responsible for putting us in that position, in Tony Vitello. So as we work through what that looks like, I'd like to try to take advantage of things that were done before I got here. There's some great work that happened, as I mentioned, in that master plan. So would we scrap it? No, I think that there's a lot that we can learn from that, and maybe take components of it and maybe come up with some different ideas. I like to come up with new ideas nobody's thought of. I also like to steal some of the best ideas that others have already implemented. And there'll probably be a combination of both those things as we figure out the right formula for our baseball facility.
David Ubben.
Daniel, what's your understanding of the timeline of the end of the football investigation and possible self-imposition and maybe the NCAA's decision? Kind of what's your understanding of the timeline of those 3 events?
We're working through that right now, working really closely still with outside counsel and the NCAA staff, having ongoing conversations with NCAA staff. I think it's been very smart, and this decision was made before I arrived here, but we're certainly continuing to carry on with, again, I think it's very smart to include the NCAA every step of the way in our investigation, with the goal of showing how serious we take this. We want to come out of this as an example of how NCAA issues should be solved in the future. We are going to operate with the highest level of integrity and hold ourselves accountable for the issues that did occur here. But I'm not trying to give you a non-answer answer, but we're kind of in the same place. Are we closer than we were a month ago? Yes. But I can't put a time frame on it because I just don't know. These things are fluid. Each interview could yield different information that takes on a different turn in the investigation. Nobody can put a time frame on it right now.
Go next to Brittany Tarwater, then back to Brent Hubbs.
Hi, I'm sorry if you've addressed this, but could you talk about the hashtag culture position that's listed and what you're looking for, what you're hoping that person brings to the table?
I believe you're talking about an HR position that will work closely with university HR and our athletics department. HR, Marcus Hilliard, my chief of staff, is overseeing that area. From an HR standpoint, there's obviously some technical skills and experience we need out of that position. But I'm big on culture. I think that culture and building a championship culture is going to be a huge part of our success here. And so we're going to be intentional about making sure we have an upbeat, positive, high energy culture here in our athletics department every day.
Yeah, Danny, back to facilities for football. Why the Jumbotron? Why the chairbacks as the first 2 phases or first 2 things in a phase, as opposed to some of the other renderings that fans have seen for the last 10 or 12 years, which include the South End and everything? Why did you go with those 2 projects first?
A few reasons. One, they were already in the queue in terms of there's some rules we have to follow at the state level that take time. So those were 2 of the options that could be accomplished by the 22 season. So that's a big factor. We wanted to get moving as quickly as possible. They are 2 projects that overwhelmingly respond to feedback we've gotten from fans on what they would like to see in terms of new amenities in the stadium. with both of those projects, they check a lot of boxes, and that's the kind of relationship I want to have with our fan base, and we want to have is one where we're working together on these kinds of things, and we are listening. And we want to deliver what they're telling us they want, and I know that we're doing that with those two projects. But then also they're both revenue producing, as I mentioned earlier. It's easy financially to pull the trigger on projects like that as we move forward and get into a larger conversation with our fan base, which will be a part of this campaign about what the future of Neyland looks like. And there are parts of that stadium, the lower west side being one of them, that will be renovated right away. But there are a lot of parts of that stadium that are still 100 years old. As you all know, there's a lot of updating, which is financially a challenge, but it's also a huge opportunity for us to take this iconic sports venue. The stadium has such unbelievable history, and kind of put our own unique spin on it, and bring together a modern experience while also protecting the storied history of Neyland Stadium.
Trey Wallace.
Danny, two questions. First, is it a priority for you guys for communication wise inside the stadium, when that comes to Wi-Fi, when that comes to cell phone signal distribution? Is that a main priority for you guys as well? I know there have been a lot of complaints over the past couple of years. Second part of the question, are you guys ready to announce that it will be 100% capacity at Neyland Stadium in the fall?
First part, connectivity, absolutely. It's a huge part of today of the fan experience. And as we look to tomorrow and what the future holds, it's going to be an even bigger part. So I have some things to learn about what our current experience is like. I've learned a little bit. Obviously haven't experienced a game in Neyland, but I think I can take our fans' word for it, and some of the experiences people have had sitting in the bowl, and what the level of connectivity they've had. So yeah, that's a priority. We have to figure that out. There's some unique things that we can be doing when you think about the student section and engagement with our students, not only to come to the game, but to stay for all four quarters and be engaged in different ways. But you can't do any of that stuff through cell phones without connectivity, obviously. Second part of your question was, help me out.
Are you guys fully committed to announce that, you guys are going 100% capacity in the fall at Neyland?
Sure. I don't want to get ahead of our county officials and medical experts on that. Everyone I've talked to, as from a healthcare standpoint, and those that are forecasting the future, has shown great confidence that we will be in that place of full capacity. We're certainly doing that in baseball right now. I don't know why that would change, but I can't officially announce it. It's not actually, I don't think it's my role to officially announce it, but I'd be surprised if it's any different than that. I can say that.
We've got time for a few more questions if we have them. We'll go back to Brent.
Yeah, Danny, you've got coaches on Capitol Hill today addressing Congress in regards to name, image, likeness. You announced your sort of part of your plan for name, image, likeness or a week or so ago. Can you walk through what the navigation of that is like as an administrator, and kind of what you see moving forward the next few months as that stuff gets into place?
Yeah, there's a lot that we're all going to learn collectively in college sports on how this is going to roll out, what's going to be allowed from a legislative standpoint, both potentially federal government, NCAA rules, but then also where the market is going to gravitate toward for these student athletes. That'll show what things are lucrative to the point where it's worth their time. And I think that, like any new venture that's kind of market driven, what we think on the front end may end up being different in terms of how it plays out. So what I love about our plan that was already in place before, not in place, but in the works before I arrived, and we have really smart folks on staff that have been working on that for a year and a half or so, and great support from our faculty and university leadership. We want to operate, as I talked about earlier, with the highest level of integrity. We're never going to say something that's not true. We're never going to mislead a recruit. Just not who we are at Tennessee. We're going to win championships and do it the right way here. And in this space, there's a lot of promises going on out there that people don't really know if what they're saying is going to play out. And we gravitated towards an education focus that I think prepares our student athletes in the short term to monetize their likeness and prepares them in the long term with a degree in hand, a minor in entrepreneurship in our Haslam College of Business that is pretty flexible depending on what their interests are from an entrepreneurship standpoint. So I love our focus with our program. There's value for our student athletes, regardless of how the rules play out and how the market factors play out in the NIL space.
Trey Wallace.
Hey, two questions. Tom, I got a little bit confused by your earlier statement, but I guess this can go to Danny. For this weekend, will you guys be doing the same thing you did last weekend when it comes to students, 300 tickets for students for the upcoming super regional game?
Yeah, yes. It's important to me, to all of us, that we have some room for our students, want them to experience a super regional. Hopefully that becomes something they experience all the time around here, but I know it's been some time, and actually I don't think we ever had one at home. So excited to be able to do that for our students. They're a huge part of our success as we look into the future of all of our venues, but in this case, Lindsey Nelson Stadium. The student experience is huge and is going to be critical for what our game day environment looks like. But yeah, we've handled this upcoming weekend the same exact way we handled last weekend for the regional.
And second part, in pertaining to baseball, have you had donors come to you in regards to wanting to help out with Tony Vitello's contract, when either that comes to assistant coaches, when it comes to Vitello's contract or extension or renegotiation? Have you had donors step up and say, hey, I want to be a part of whatever needs to be paid to this guy?
I've had great conversations with donors about investing in Lindsey Nelson Stadium, and I'm confident in the level of interest in what the stadium can look like. And but that's where I focus my conversations with donors, is philanthropic support for enhancing the stadium.
All right, everyone. It looks like that's it. Appreciate everyone logging on. Everybody have a good afternoon.
All right. Thank